In recovery, after the last video blog I did, it's oftentimes I'll get questions from people who will say, but Samuel, what if they don't, etc., etc. And after the last video blog, some of you had asked, well, I love the idea, self-love, caring for myself. I love the understanding of pursuing my own healing. But what if my unfaithful spouse doesn't pursue me? Like, what if I draw boundaries? What if I do a separation or divorce or A, B, and C, and they don't respond? They don't pursue me. They don't come after me. Maybe you draw some boundaries up and your unfaithful spouse doesn't pursue you, and they go live with their affair partner, or they just drift further away from you. So I want to answer that today. So for starters, if you haven't watched the last video blog, I encourage you to go back and watch that to understand where this video is going to go. If you've watched it, here's what you're doing. I call it you're resetting the paradigm within your marriage. I'll go back to a story where Samantha said to me, "You're a great dad, but I can't stay married to you just because you're a great dad." And what she was saying was, look, I'm not going to just feel compelled or codependent to stay with you because you're such a good dad, and that the kids can't be away from you for very long because they cry for you and constantly want to be around you. I'm not going to stay with you and let you do whatever the hell you want to do just because you're a good dad and the kids can't stand to be away from you. Now, that may or may not sound like much, but to me, in my little paradigm, that was a kick in the teeth, because that woke me up to the fact that Samantha was a strong, independent, learning to love herself woman, and she was not going to sit back and just let me do or be however I wanted to be, and everything was going to be fine and we were going to ride off into the sunset. No, no, no. She was taking the power back, saying, look, I'm not going to do that. And she was being counseled by several people to divorce me, and that there was no hope for me to change. You may remember from one of her videos that really good friends or ex-really good friends were telling her, look, he has shocked us so much. You need to get away from him. There's no hope for him. He can't change. I mean, it was terrifying for me. But when she had this paradigm shift, there was something in her that said, look, I knew I needed to get healthy, and I knew I needed to get whole, and I wasn't going to just wait for you, Samuel, to get your stuff in order. I had to work on me. I was a mother. I was in my 30s and had sacrificed my career, so if I was going to be without you, I knew I was going to have to eventually go back to work. I mean, I was preparing for life without you. That's not unbelief or despair or hopelessness. That was her understanding, acceptance, and trying to accept her reality, because she was trying to get an idea for what she was going to do. And I'm often asked, well, if I do these boundaries, and then what if that scares or chases my spouse away? I'm sorry if setting boundaries of self-respect and self-love and dignity chase your spouse away. You probably need to chase them away. That's just the hardcore truth. Because if you can't love yourself, something's wrong. Now, I want to encourage you that to answer the question very specifically, well, what if they don't? Well, if you draw boundaries and if they don't end up pursuing you, if they end up just continuing to leave you, if they spiral and go do their own thing, I'm sorry, you're going to be in a better place, because you're working on loving yourself and caring for yourself and being a strong, self-loving individual. You're going to be in a better place. Sure, financially it may be tough. Sure, having your spouse out of the home might really be tough. I get it, absolutely. But I want to encourage you that you are resetting the paradigm, because my question back to you is, what if it works, and what if your spouse comes back? Well, if your spouse comes back, or if your spouse draws near to you and you get help and you actually start to do some good recovery work and you experience restoration, you've reset the paradigm so that a year, 2, 3, 4 years down the road, God forbid infidelity should ever happen, but something happens where your spouse expects to just say, this is how it's going to be, out of kind of a controlling, prideful, arrogant nature, and you say, you may have forgotten how the paradigm has shifted here. We've just been through a hellacious, life-changing event that has caused me to get a whole new sense of self-respect, self-love, and dignity. I'm not a doormat. Didn't you learn the first time? Why do I know so much about those conversations? Because they happened to me. Early on, there was a point where, as we started to gain momentum, there was a paradigm shift, and I bumped up against that paradigm shift. And Samantha was like, no, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I'd like to talk about doing this or that. And my old nature, pre-recovery, was like, what? And then the new recovery work kicked in, the sobriety kicked in, and I was like, I think you're right. This is a partnership. And sure, for the faith perspective, yeah, I'm the head of the home, but when you really understand that, that means I'm the head servant, and my job is to serve and love my spouse and care for her and my family, and putting them in first place, me, somewhere at the bottom. And so it really caused me to go, oh yeah, hold on. There's a paradigm shift here. No, I'm not a doormat. No, Samantha doesn't throw my past in my face and walk all over me. No, and she doesn't remind me who I was. No, not at all. But she took the power back. And I want to encourage you, if you're a betrayed spouse, to take the power back in your recovery and to say, look, I don't know if they're going to come back. I don't know if this is going to work or not, but it is going to work for me to get healthy, and it is going to work for me to accept my reality and start to really love myself and care for myself and correct myself and do the recovery work that I need to make, because if they do come back, you are resetting the paradigm on which your marriage is built. You are rebuilding the foundation that says, hold on, our marriage is going to be richer and stronger and healthier and mutually satisfying to a degree that maybe we're not experiencing right now, because I'm resetting and rebuilding the foundation in which we dwell right now. So in essence, what if they don't respond? What if they go and chase their affair partner? Well, it would be unfortunate, but you'll be able to look back and say, you know what? I did the brave thing, and I chose myself, I loved myself, I humbled myself, and they didn't want to be with me. Well, you know what? I want to be with me, and maybe I'll find somebody that wants to be with me again. And now I want to share with you a caveat to this little situation. I have talked with numbers of betrayed spouses who have said, well, and this isn't for everybody. I'm going to close with just this little small kind of situation, as they've said, well, Samuel, I was very rejecting and hard and angry towards my spouse, and I maybe didn't make them cheat, but I was very difficult to live with, and I own that now. Well, then you probably are going to have to own that with your unfaithful spouse. You're probably going to have a moment of real great humility and say, I'm upset, or I'm grieved, or I'm angry that you cheated, and I understand you were looking for some things that maybe I didn't give you. I understand that I was this, and this. That does not justify their affair. That does not justify the fact that they cheated, because they still could have done an incredible amount of other things instead of cheating. But it does mean that you are willing to own up to a part of you that may actually help them understand, whoa, wait a minute. He or she is taking some ownership to what I was feeling. It may be one of the ways that draws them back into recovery. I don't know. It does happen, and for some situations that absolutely must happen, because if you don't do that, you're pushing your spouse away because you're not being vulnerable to at least own some things that in your heart you know you were guilty of. That's not for everybody. That may be more down the road for a lot of you, but for some of you, you may need to, on the front end, while you're drawing boundaries, say, look, I understand that I was, these things, but I'm willing to own them and do some repair work, but I can't chase you to respond to me. I can't chase you into recovery. You have to want it or you don't.